Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been very disappointing so far, at least on the film side of things. TV, not so much. But their latest does very little to remedy that situation. Let's talk about Thor, Love, and Thunder. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new Marvel film, Thor, Love and Thunder. It is in theaters right now, and I say spoiler-free. I will talk about the most minimal of plot details, just basically to get you to the plot itself, but we're not going to talk about any kind of, real spoilers in any way, shape, or form in this video. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can watch this with reckless abandon. If you have seen it, you'll probably know, more specifically about what I'm talking about when I say certain things, in my sort of vague notions of what I think of this movie. But before we get into the specifics that I can give you of Thor, Love, and Thunder, I do want to welcome you in to Dan Reviews It. Thanks for finding this video and my channel. Please consider subscribing down below there or comment about this movie and your thoughts. I'd love to engage with you about whether you loved or did not love this movie. So let's talk about it. My review for Doctor Strange 2, which was the Multiverse of Madness, was not very glowing. I gave it a C. The Eternals was a D+ for me. Now, I did really like Shang-Chi, and anything with Spider-Man gets, at least some sort of a passing grade. Black Widow, disappointing as well. But the TV side of things, and I said this in my Multiverse of Madness review too, the TV side of things is doing very well. And since that movie came out, we've had at least one show, Ms. Marvel, which I really liked. I think Moon Knight might have come after Doctor Strange 2 as well, and that I really like. So the TV show side of things, great. Go for it. Movie side of things, really, really leaves a lot to be desired here. So I guess before we get into the good and the bad, there are a few good things about this movie. I guess the basic premise is what I can tell you. So Chris Hemsworth, of course, returns here as Thor. Jane Foster is in this movie as well, Natalie Portman's character from the first 2 Thor films. She was absent from Ragnarok. And they are trying to stop Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale here. He wants to eliminate all gods, and we learn as the movie goes on, why that is, what his issues are. It was directed by Taika Waititi, who did also direct Thor Ragnarok, which is by far, I think, the best of the Thor series. I think 1 gets crapped on a little much. I kind of liked Thor 1 at the time. When put aside with everything else that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, okay, it doesn't really hold up, but at the time it was very good. The second Thor, Dark World, was pretty bad. But Taika Waititi also has a voice role here as Korg, who we met in Ragnarok, and he's here too. We also see Tessa Thompson return as Valkyrie, and a few new people to the Thor-specific films. I won't get into specific cameos or anything, but I think, they set a few things up for a possible Thor 5 if they want to go in that direction. But Taika Waititi also co-wrote this movie, and he did not have a hand in the writing for Thor Ragnarok, and I think therein lies some of the biggest issues with this movie. But first, I guess let's talk about some positive, because there are a few. Okay, so number 1, Christian Bale, who I really am back and forth with. Every 2 or 3 movies, I'm like, oh, he stinks, I don't like him. But then he'll release something like Ford v Ferrari, where I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a great actor. He has the worst Batman. I hate his Batman. The Batman movies were okay, but I did not care for his portrayal of Batman. I think that's kind of where my hatred stems from. But he's excellent in this movie. He is probably the best part about it, as Gore. And I think he has one of the more compelling sort of reasons for being such a villain, as we learn as the movie goes on. Marvel tends to have villain problems, and I think Gore is one of the more compelling villains we've gotten in a while. So that is definitely a positive. But all the positives I feel like I have come with negatives too. The big negative for him is I think he's in a different movie. He shows up and the movie becomes something completely different. he has really bad chemistry on screen with Christian Bale, and it's not necessarily his fault, or with Chris Hemsworth. It's not Hemsworth's fault. It's not Christian Bale's fault. It is a script problem. The tonal swings in this movie are ridiculous. They're all over the place, and his gore is great, but he just is in a different movie entirely, and a movie I would have much preferred to see, I think. So that's one positive. Christian Bale is great in this movie. Another positive is that the soundtrack is great. You know, we make great use of Guns N' Roses here. There's a couple other bands, but the main core of the soundtrack is all Guns N' Roses. But again, a little bit of a negative there, you know, just because it seems a little too well placed. Like it's just perfect, but I don't know. I feel like the Marvel movies sometimes have an issue where instead of getting some new music into the mix, it's like a constant classic rock barrage of soundtracks, which is interesting because I do think it makes the movies a bit more timeless in that regard. But I'd like to see them mix it up a little bit. You know, I feel like 3 Guns N' Roses numbers, one of them which is, or maybe there's 4. I think there's 4 total, actually, now that I think about it. One of which gets repeated towards the end of the movie. I think it's a little extreme. You know, Guardians of the Galaxy at least mixed it up with various artists and stuff. But again, on the classic rock tip. But all the songs were well placed. I will give it that. And they sounded good within the scenes and stuff. All right. So let's see. What are some other positives? Well, I will say that this is one of the most recent examples of a Marvel movie for an established character. They usually don't have these where you don't really have to know much going into this movie. If you've never seen a Marvel movie before, I think you could actually be on board with this and understand what's happening. You don't have to really see any of the shows. The narrator, who is, Taika Waititi again, as Korg, I suppose, he really lays out, okay, here's who Jane Foster is. Here's what Thor did, in the previous couple of movies. Here's who this guy is. Here's what Asgard is. He really kind of lays the groundwork for that, which is one of my biggest problems lately with the MCU, is you have to watch like 8 different things to follow along whatever the current thing is. This did not do that. So in that sense, I appreciated that it was more of a standalone story. All right, and then you've got all these negatives. Oh, you know what? One more positive before I get to the negatives is the Jane Foster thing. So Natalie Portman has never been one of my favorite people in the MCU. I don't think her Jane Foster is very interesting. I don't really think that her and Chris Hemsworth have really any chemistry on screen together in those first 2 movies. But I think that changes here. I do think, and listen, love is in the title. Love is obviously a big theme here of this movie. So it would make sense that I sort of enjoyed some of their scenes together, some of the more touching scenes, some of the more emotional moments, and she's going through a whole bunch of stuff on her own. If you're familiar with the comic books, maybe you know what that is, but again, we won't do spoiler territory there, but I appreciated, actually, the 2 of them together in this movie. Not at first. It did take me a little while to sort of warm up to her return, but she's never been one of my favorite love interests in the Marvel universe. But here, I guess partially because they make her much more than a love interest. Again, you'll find out why when you see the movie. But love, obviously, like I said, is a huge theme. So there is, several emotional scenes in this movie with the 2 of them. And I think for the most part, they actually worked. So I'll give it that. All right, now on to all the negatives. I already mentioned sort of the wildly erratic tone of this movie when I talked about Christian Bale's character, Gore. That is just, it's a fact. It's not even really a statement. The tone of this movie is just so all over the place, to the point that certain people do seem like they're in a completely separate movie, and a movie that I would have preferred watching. In addition to that, sort of going hand in hand with that tone, is the humor of the writing here. Taika Waititi co-wrote this, and look, I think Waititi's a funny dude, can be, but I also think there are times, and this is certainly a prime example of it, where he's just trying to make everything into a joke, into a pithy comment, into some, stupid ongoing gag. There's an ongoing gag with these goats that I found horribly annoying. And it's recurring throughout the whole movie. Hated that. And just the lines are, some of them land, some of them are okay. I wouldn't say Hemsworth is known for his comedic chops. Tessa Thompson, I think maybe a little bit more so, but again, she's not necessarily known for comedy either. It is interesting to note, by the way, Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth were great together in that Men in Black movie they did a few years ago. It kind of tanked at the box office, so I don't think we'll be seeing another one. But I really did enjoy that, MIB International. So it was kind of nice to see them back on screen together. But in any event, the jokes are just so hit or miss. I would say definitely less than a 50% hit rate on these jokes, probably more like 30%, which isn't great. And I think that all bleeds into kind of the overarching biggest issue with this movie. Waititi was trying to recreate Ragnarok. The first Thor movie, was okay. The second Thor movie, I think, is generally regarded as one of the worst in the series, in the whole MCU. And then Ragnarok was great. Everyone pretty much universally liked it. It has like a 93% or something on Rotten Tomatoes compared to around 70 for the other Thor movies. So Waititi went all in on it. So much so that some of the same cameos are even present. Like, it's very annoying how much they really try to recreate Ragnarok here with such diminishing results. It's like he took everything that was good about Ragnarok and amplified it by 5, and it didn't work. What was so great about Ragnarok was that really great balance that we had. And Waititi did not know how to strike that at all the second time. So really, the main problems with this movie are the script. And, the acting's okay for the most part, especially great by Bale. Everything's pretty much, par for the course for Marvel, except for that script. It's so weak. And as a result, and Gore, this great villain we have, is barely even in the movie, lasts like 25 minutes maybe, and then, a couple scenes in the beginning. And there is a great battle towards the end, like a lot of good Marvel movies, we get a really nice battle sequence. But at that point, we're almost 2 hours into the movie. And I will say, another maybe good thing is the runtime. It's only about 2 hours, which is pretty short for a Marvel movie. Although, if 10 extra minutes meant 10 extra minutes of gore, I would have really liked that. By far the best part of the movie, as I keep saying. So, all right, look, overall, we're going to grade it here. It actually makes me want to raise my Doctor Strange grade a little bit. I'm going to stick with my C for now on Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but by the end of the year, I could see raising that to a C+, because this one I am leaving with a C-. And I do think, for all of Doctor Strange's flaws, and they do have them, at least it was very original. Something brand new for the MCU. This is basically just a pathetic copy of Ragnarok, and just worse in just about every way, except I guess for the villain. But yeah, so, Doctor Strange 2, all right, maybe a C+, we'll see. But Thor Love and Thunder gets a C- from me. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.